Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
You are listening to the TrekRanks Podcast, a member of the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network. This is episode 01. And I am your host, Jim Moorhouse, and with me is my co-host and the founder of the Tricorder Transmission Podcast Network, Mr. Jeff Hulit. And we are also honored to have as our first official guest on the TrekRanks Podcast, the fabulous co-host of the Shorely Podcast, which is right here on the Tricorder Transmissions Podcast Network, our all-around amazing favorite Trekkie, Miss Heather Barker. Heather, are you there?
I'm here. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Thank you for asking me to be on this episode.
Could not be happier to have you here, right, Jeff?
Absolutely. I am always happy to be on the air with Heather. I get the pleasure of being on Shore Leave with her at least once a month and on a lot of our other episodes in between. So,
and we get the pleasure of listening to you guys.
Aww.
So, all right. Well, computer access has been granted to all of our listeners right now, Jeff. So let's do this. The first official episode of TrekRanks starting right now. And of course, this is not counting episode NX00, which you may or may not have already listened to, but I recommend you do that.
Yes, definitely.
It was a lot of fun. Top 3 Kirk episodes. Yeah.
Amazing.
Still thinking about it.
Amazing. 6 different ones too. No overlap.
That's right. That was great. So let's jump in. We're going to recap a little bit what the TrekRanks structure is all about and what the goal of the show is. And the goal of the show is to talk about Star Trek, which is literally my favorite thing to do in the world. And we're going to do more than talk about it. We're also going to dissect it. We're going to analyze it. And we're going to make the hard choices because we are ranking Trek. And, you know, there's 700 plus hours of on-screen Trek. So we're never going to be short of topics. And we're never going to be short of picks. Right, guys?
Absolutely.
Yes.
All right. So before we get started, I want to let you guys know a little bit how you can give us some feedback because we definitely want to hear from you guys. Talking Trek is our favorite thing. So not hearing from you will deprive me of my favorite thing. So I'm counting on you guys to give us some feedback. So Jeff, please fire up our subspace transceiver array so our listeners know exactly how they can hail us.
Hailing frequencies are open.
All right, guys. So if you're looking to get a hold of us, you can find us online at the tricordertransmissions.com, facebook.com/the tricordertransmissions, and we are Tricorder Show on Twitter. So you can hit us up on social media with any of your picks or any feedback you might have. We also have a phone number that you can call and leave us a voicemail with your picks. That is 609-512-LLAP, 609-512-5527. Looking forward to hearing from all you guys.
And Heather, how can people get in hold of you?
Oh, well, oh gosh. Now I have to remember. I just changed my Twitter handle. So now I am LLA Posper on Twitter. And on Instagram too. And then I'm an admin in the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas group on Facebook.
Pretty sure that's my new favorite Twitter handle, by the way.
Thank you.
And I am on Twitter at Enterprise Extra and at TrekRanks. So that's definitely the best way to contact me and talk about Trek, which you may have already heard is my favorite thing to do. All right, time to talk about today's show. And we're going to go through a little bit of our structure for each episode and just kind of jump into tonight's topic. So for the most part, you know, the show is about 100% live action Trek. It's about the televised and filmed Trek. You know, I love Trek in all its form, but for me, it's really about the show. So just want to, you know, kind of remind people that that's the goal of the show is to talk about what we've seen on screen. And as part of, you know, our mission briefing for this show, you're going to often hear me talk about one of my favorite mantras when we talk about Trek, and that is no wrong answers.
Infinite diversity.
In infinite combinations.
Correct, Vulcan Master. Infinite diversity in infinite combinations. There's going to be a lot of Trek opinions, a lot of favorites on this show, And ultimately, there's no wrong answers when you're talking about Trek and the reasons you love Trek. So what's your guys' take on the Trek Ranks mission briefing?
I like it. I think it's smart. We like positivity over at Shore Leave and in our Facebook group, so I'm all for it.
Yes, I completely agree. And, you guys know, I don't know if the audience knows, but I have some very strange tastes in Trek, so I'll be making flagrant use of the there's no wrong answer rule, especially starting tonight.
I literally cannot wait to hear what you guys come up with. So,
you'll be rolling your eyes left and right, Jim.
No,
With
I'm
mine
not.
Anyway.
We'll see. We're gonna test my mantra. We're gonna test that today.
All right.
All right. So one final point, just so everyone's aware that obviously we all love original series, love the Next Generation. I love DS9, Voyager, Enterprise. And I also love the Kelvin timeline. So it's all fair game here on the Trek Ranks podcast. Sometimes I feel like I need to say that up front so people know, hey, I'm an apologist for all Trek, not just the TV shows and old Prime Trek. So I love the Kelvin timeline. All right. So as we did, Jeff, in episode NX00, I'm going to quickly run through our framework for the show just to let people get a feel for how we're structuring each week's topics here. So first thing we're going to do is run through our Level One Diagnostic. And that's, breaking down the topic by telling you exactly what we've chosen to discuss and why. And then from there, we go to the Prime Directive, which is a little bit more detailed, explaining exactly how each of us based our decision making. And to me, this is a pretty crucial element, because the criteria for driving our choices is really kind of gives context for the picks. My starting point at Trek Ranks, I think anybody who's been to the site or read any of my long-winded essays there, it's usually driven by if I can only watch one episode the rest of my life. That's just kind of how I always think. So which one would you choose if you can only pick one right now, gun to your head? So, but I think in this case on the podcast, there's going to be a lot of different reasons and ways to frame it. What's the most artistic episode? What's the best episode to watch while you're hanging out with Morn at Quarks? So, these are the ways we're going to figure that out in the Prime Directive. Jeff and Heather, any thoughts on that? I'm looking forward to hearing kind of how you guys framed your decision making.
I followed your rules.
Yes. My rules are made to be broken. There's really no question. All right. So then after the Prime Directive, we're going to jump into the core topic with the order of things, where we get into the ranking and the analyzing. And, I think without any doubt, once we go through it, we're going to have a consensus for all time, pretty much ready to go. That's not going to happen. Because one thing that Jeff and one thing we talked about in the first episode, NX00, is we know if we did this show tomorrow, we would all have different answers. It's just it's the way of Trek Ranks, and it's part of the fun. So after we're done with the order of things, we'll jump into the regeneration cycle, go through a quick summary of our takeaways from the list. And then if you haven't listened to the preview episode, we're also going to close it out with the temporal causality loop, which, if you remember at the start of this episode, we said we're looking for your feedback, which means we really need to hear from everybody, because we want to get your feedback and put it on the show. And the idea of the temporal loop is that you listen to the show, you give us your comments, tell us where we got it right, tell us where we got it wrong, tell us your list, and then hopefully we'll have some comments come in, and we'll put that feedback on the end of the next show. So a little bit of a temporal loop as we flash back to the previous episode. So that's a lot of explaining. Did I miss anything, guys?
I think you got it.
Okay. All right. So now let's get into the topic for this episode.
Diagnostic cycle will be complete in 20 seconds.
All right. So our first official topic in episode 01, we've picked a tough one. We're basically each picking our top 5 comfort food episodes.
Love it.
And I got a feeling with 700 plus hours of Trek, we're not going to have a lot of duplicates tonight.
No.
If there's any crossover, I will be shocked. And I will also be excited, because that would be pretty cool. But there's just way too many to choose from. So, yeah, I mean, what do you guys think? What do you think of, how do you define kind of a comfort food episode?
I think for me, it's something that is a feel good. Like I feel good when I'm done watching it. And that can mean that it's a funny, a humorous episode, or that can mean that it's an episode that has a strong message that resonates with me. But overall, it's one that just has a positive, comforting, feel good effect.
Mm. Yeah, it's funny. Heather and I, our reasons for picking something for comfort food sound like they're going to be very, very similar. I love comedy, so I always kind of go for the lighthearted stuff when I'm looking for an episode that's going to kind of soothe me and kind of make me feel a little comforted when things are tough. So I always go for those, and also there's the nostalgia factor too that comes in for me for comfort food episodes, things that are related to other things that I enjoy. So you'll definitely see one of those picks in my list here tonight. Then there's also the favorite factor. When you have favorite episodes, I think that also can play into episodes that you just reach for when you want to sit down and just absorb yourself into some comforting Trek. So there's a lot of things that feed into comfort food Trek, but I think it's also an important thing for us also to remind everybody out there that these are not necessarily our favorite Trek episodes. It's not our top 5 favorites. So eventually I'm sure we'll do an episode where we do our top 5 favorite Trek episodes maybe down the road, but this is definitely not episodes that I would consider my top 5 favorites, but ones that I definitely reach for when I'm in that mood.
No, I get that. I'm going to be in the same place. I mean, there's no doubt that these episodes were definitely not easy to pick.
No.
I do not concur with your captain's decision.
She's following our Prime Directive.
Define Prime Directive.
All right, it's time to do our deep dive here into just to talk about how each of us compiled our list. Now, you guys were just telling me a little bit about kind of the way you broke it down, and that's pretty much your Prime Directive. I think, Heather, you're saying you're looking at kind of a comedy type feel good episode. Is that how you kind of summarize that?
They're not all comedy.
Yeah, right.
There's a pretty good range between the ones that I've picked. And it honestly, I hate to say this, it wasn't that difficult for me to pick them out.
Wow. Wow, interesting.
They are so two of the, okay, so this is my biggest challenge, believe it or not, was not picking only TOS episodes.
Wow.
I don't like calling myself a niner because I just don't like it. But DS9 is really my overall favorite series. But TOS is like right there on the edge. And when I think about those comfort episodes and the ones that I am just likely to pick first thing, they're really like all TOS episodes.
Right, that's fascinating. I had a similar challenge, but for me this was a brutal way to start the TrekRanks podcast. I mean, it's really rough for me to narrow it down to 5 episodes. I mean, I've always had a bunch of like go-to episodes that maybe don't rank super high at TrekRanks, on my overall list. But, ultimately the way I approached my list is I was thinking about which of the 5 episodes that just, give me a big sigh, just soothe me, just relaxes me. Maybe it's just satisfying in a way that they just have a nice closed story. And I can just find myself rewatching them over and over again. And they're episodes that I just pop in pretty frequently. I watch a lot of Star Trek, by the way. So when you talk about a comfort food episode, that's like even more Star Trek that I'm watching. So it was difficult to compile my list. So Jeff, give us a quick breakdown again of your Prime Directive.
Man, I had a tough time, like Heather did, trying to stay away from picking all TOS episodes. So I confessed in episode 0 that I am an original series diehard fan, and I was raised on it. And if this was a top 5 comfort food TOS episodes, it would have been cakewalk for me to pick 5. But I deliberately made myself go outside of that comfort zone and pick episodes outside of the ones that I'm completely comfortable with. So I did vary it up a little bit. I was trying to stay away from picking all humorous ones, of course, because my part of my human nature of being me, I always gravitate towards comedy. Trek or not Trek. I'm a big fan of comedy movies, comedy TV shows, stand-up comedy. So that's always my go-to. So I tried to limit myself a little bit and make sure I varied up the themes of my comfort food episodes. And in fact, one of the episodes that I picked, it may actually fly in the face of what people may consider a comfort food episode just by the content of it. But for me, it's comforting for a completely different reason. So I'll get there when I get there.
Okay, that's interesting. So I'm a little bit of a spoiler. I didn't pick any comedies. It was interesting as I started going through this and I was figuring out kind of how I'm defining these. It became, well, again, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it was a little bit more close-ended, very just satisfying outcome stories is kind of the way I'll phrase that. So, all right. So before we get into the order of things, a quick breakdown of just how we're going to kind of go through each episode or each selection. So first, we are going to name the episode, talk a little, maybe tease it a little bit, then name the episode. And then we're each going to give our 5-word summary and a hashtag, which is a TrekRanks staple for every episode. It's just a kind of a fun, simple way to really hit home on exactly what each episode means and says to you. From there, then it'll be just, defining the episode, maybe with a moment or a scene or a piece of dialogue from the script that just makes that episode memorable and makes that episode comfort food for you and why you watch it over and over. So make sense, guys?
Yep, got it.
All right, I think it's time to jump into the order of things.
I am a Jem'Hadar. He is a Vorta. It is the order of things.
All right, well, we've gone through this. I think, well, actually, Heather said it wasn't that tough for her, which I am intrigued by. Extremely tough for me, but fun. And I'm very excited because I feel like these picks are going to be all over the map. Maybe if we get to the end, we can jump into our secondary systems and talk a little bit about some honorable mention selections too. So, all right, let's get started with our guest, Miss Heather Barker, with her number 5 pick.
Oh gosh. My number 5 pick is I'm brown nosing here. And it really, okay. When one of my friends is in a Star Trek episode, I can't ignore that episode. And I will admit here that I picked it solely because Jim Moorhouse is in this episode.
Best episode ever.
But it would, of course, be Star Trek Enterprise's Awakening. I really solely picked it because I anytime that I see my friend on Star Trek, it's just the best thing in the world. So if I'm in a bad mood or had a rough day, I can put that episode on and just wait for you to fire the phasers. And it makes me happy.
I'm getting emotional. Not because you picked it, just because I'm remembering that I was on Star Trek. All right, I am so fired up that you chose that. What's your, I gotta hear your 5-word summary and your hashtag.
It's my friend fired the phasers.
Yeah.
It was easy.
Fantastic. That is superb. We should just end the show right there, Jeff. It's too good. I did not see that coming.
I considered saving it for the very last, but I was like, no, okay.
No, it's better to get it out of the way.
There are episodes there's a lot more in them besides just Jim Moorhouse, right?
For sure.
But yeah, and we watched that episode at STLV together last year with all of our friends.
That was amazing.
So I have a soft spot for that episode, so it had to make my top 5 for sure.
Great memories.
That is fantastic. All right, Jeff, try to top that one.
Oh, I can't top that.
What's your number 5?
I give up. I'm throwing my list away. Forget it. All right. No, but in all seriousness, my number 5 pick, and now I'm going to tell you, I am totally kicking the tires on that no wrong answers rule with this one. So hold on to your seats. This is TOS Season 3, Episode 20, The Way to Eden.
Wow.
My
5 words.
My mind is blown. All right,
I figured it would be. My 5 words are hippie singing and Spock strumming. Hashtag going to Eden, brother.
You just won me over. It's a great pick. I mean, if that's your, that's soothing. It really is.
Guys, come on. I mean, what better way to zone out with some lighthearted, totally goofy Trek that stands apart from everything else. I mean, you've got these hippies with these goofy songs going on. You've got these crazy costumes. I mean, the storyline is almost so unbelievable that it just almost takes you out of Trek, but it's so much fun. I mean, Star Trek is famous for social commentary, but rarely do the writers just hit you over the head with a baseball bat on their views on a certain societal issue like hippies, right? You have no doubt how the writers felt about the hippie movement in this episode. But it's great that I love that the totally serious Mr. Spock kind of almost breaks character and sits down and plays his lute with the hippie band, and everybody's having a good time and grooving out. And, it's, for me, it's fun. I love the Chekhov love backstory with Irina. You rarely get to see Chekhov, doing anything that defines his character, but I kind of love that that's a little side note in this episode. And I just think it's a great example of a Trek episode that provides like a totally stress-free and amusing watching experience.
I'm totally sold. I'm floored, and I totally want to go watch it right now. I mean, it's bottom 5 in Trek Ranks.
Yeah.
TOS. That is spectacular. Heather, what's your take on Way to Eden?
It's the hippie episode. It's not one that I go to, but I can see why Jeff would pick that.
Thanks, Heather.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Hey, brother.
See what I mean? You can't help but sing it.
All right, Herbert, we are moving on to my number 5 choice, which is just a super, super fun. It just hits me in the heartstrings the right way. It honestly has no business being on anyone's favorite list. It shouldn't work, but yet it totally does. And it is from Enterprise Season 3, North Star, which is the Western episode. And I don't know why. It's actually a top 20 episode for me for Enterprise. I think it's number 17. My 5-word summary and hashtag is Western shouldn't work, totally does, hashtag skags. And I just think they get the tone exactly right in this episode. It's written by David Goodman, famous for his Family Guy writing. It's just a big, strong, silent hero in Captain Archer. You got a bunch of mealy-mouthed little henchmen running around, getting theirs. It's a great location shoot. For me, it's just super rewatchable. I watch it a lot, and I love the end. They have this incredible hero shot where Archer and T'Pol land the shuttle pod in the middle of the street, and they kind of get out with their phasers. Just real iconic shot. It kind of stands out. And I just think the heart of this episode is it's super real. It's actually a pretty complex plot where the humans were captured and taken there by these aliens, and they overthrew them, but now they're abusing the aliens, and just all very satisfying for me when the Skags at the end, when the Skags are going to school and the big strong sheriff is sitting there with them trying to learn about Earth's history. I just love it. I love Westerns. Love that Western shootout. It just works for me. What do you guys? Do you guys think much of that episode?
No. I've only watched I've watched Enterprise twice. I watched it when it aired, and then I did a rewatch about 2 years ago. There are only like very few episodes of Enterprise that really stick out to me that I can remember, and sadly, that's not one of them.
Yeah, well, when you rewatch it, you're gonna love it. Yeah, do you remember it much?
I will make a note. to rewatch it before STLV.
Nice. I do remember that episode. My last Enterprise rewatch, I think, was about 3 years ago. But so it's been a while since I've seen it. I do remember it. I don't remember it in great detail though, so I don't know if I can say that it would be a comfort food, an honorable mention or anything for me. But I can definitely see why you pick it.
It's got a little bit of that kind of TOS vibe too.
It does. Good point.
For sure.
It does.
All right, let's move on to number 4. Heather, we're going to kick off with you again.
Okay, so I realized that I kind of messed this up, and I did 5-word hashtags instead of 5-word summaries. So apologies, everyone.
No worries.
But my number 4 episode is from Star Trek DS9, and it is Trials and Tribulation.
Nice.
So I'm going to switch this around. I think this can work for 5 words, though it's kind of a lot. But so my 5-word summary would be 99 problems. They're all tribbles.
Nice.
And my hashtag, sorry, it's Jadzia in the red dress, because can we just talk about Jadzia in that red TOS dress?
We can do a whole show on that.
Yes, we can.
It is just such a treat. I mean, it's a great episode regardless, but it's classic. I love that they did it. I love, the standout scenes anytime that you spy a DS9 cast member, with the TOS crew. It's just so awesome. So yeah, that's why I picked it. I love it. It's fun. It makes me happy, and I'm in love with Jadzia Dex.
Yeah, you cannot go wrong with that episode. It is a perfect comfort food selection. It's number 2 on the DS9 TrekRanks list. It's an all-time classic.
Yes.
So Jeff, what do you remember? What's your takeaway from that episode?
Well, can I just tell you, Jim, that we came dangerously close to having a duplicate, because that was on my short list. And it almost made it. It was right there, and it just didn't get there. So because I felt like I had too much comedy already, so I kind of I kind of dropped that piece off. But I do absolutely adore this episode, and I remember very vividly hearing about the fact that they were working on it and they were going to do it, and I was petrified. I'm like, oh God, please don't screw this up. Please don't screw this up. And I could not have been happier with the way they did it. And, they treated the original source material with such love and care. I love the moments where they're just exploring the ship and seeing people in the old uniforms. And you just get this sense of wonder that they're seeing these legendary crew members of the Starship Enterprise and just living in, and you know how much you guys all want to live in that moment too, don't you? You wish you could wake up and find yourself on the Enterprise surrounded by all these great characters. So there's that envy piece of it there where you're envying Sisko and company.
It's a perfect episode.
I think that we can all identify with it because we're like them, wanting to meet them, really.
Absolutely.
That they kind of get that nerdy little fan bit going on that we all identify with. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, no, that pretty much had to be on the show. Otherwise we would have failed. So good job, Heather.
Thanks.
All right, Jeff, what's your number 4?
All right. So I mentioned earlier that there was one episode in my 5 that people are going to give me the Spock eyebrow for and say, that's not comfort food. How could you think that's comfort food? But there's a reason for it. So it is Enterprise, Season 2, Episode 23, Regeneration. And 5 words are Starfleet Captains 3, Borg 0. And hashtag Borg do nothing right. So this episode has 2 ties for me that make it like a nostalgia fest. So I'm a huge Borg fan anyway. So the fact that this ties into one of my favorite Trek films, First Contact, as a kind of a quasi continuation of that film. I love the fact that it ties into that. And it's also kind of an homage to John Carpenter's remake of The Thing. So, unearthing a dangerous alien from the ice, and it turns into an unstoppable force that you have to figure out how to stop. And I love the fact that, I used to loathe the fact that the Borg were this fearsome enemy and, they just get trounced by Starfleet captains every time they encounter one. But there's something really charming about the fact that, now they're back in pre-TOS days and they still get their butts kicked. Even Archer finds and Phlox figures out a way to reverse assimilation. I mean, amazing. I
don't see any issue with that.
No, I don't either. And you know what? It was an episode again that I expected not to like, and I had this huge affinity for it. So I think that I always have fun watching that. And I love the inclusion of Cochrane having information about the Borg and it being kind of tossed aside as kind of a little funny side note.
Yes.
So it may not be comfort food for people, but for me, it hits the right notes, and it's a retcon that I can totally get behind. So I love watching it, and I go to it, quite often, actually.
Yeah, I want to jump in and say it's a perfect choice for me. It's total comfort food. It's super rewatchable.
Mm-hmm.
It never really gets old. There's always kind of new things you're picking up on. It's a pretty complex
it can
story.
Totally stand alone.
Absolutely, it is really really well done. And if you don't like it because you're hung up on the continuity and all that, then
get over it.
You just don't like fun. It's great.
Get over it.
So Heather, what's your take? You probably hate it.
I don't hate it. Again, that's great. There are no wrong answers. That's all I'm going to say.
Love it. I love
right in the
it.
triple.
I'm sorry, I don't have more insightful things to add.
No, that was heavy.
When I get through my Voyager rewatch, which I'm only on like season 3, and I've been doing this for a year, I want to do Enterprise again. So I will take all of these to note, and I will judge you later.
Okay.
All right. We don't have a Voyager pick yet, but we are about to have our first Next Generation pick. So my number 4 this is one that I think people are going to be like, what? Why do you like that episode? Or why is it super satisfying? And why do you rewatch it all the time? It's a revenge story. Ooh. And for me, it's a really deep Star Trek to its core kind of story as well. I think the first time I saw it was when it first aired in 1990. And honestly, it's one of the episodes that I think kind of reignited my passion for Trek. And I just find it super fun to watch, and I watch it over and over again. It's number 31 at TrekRanks, and it's The Hunted. Ooh. Which, if you remember, the 5-word summary is easy to root for Danar, #plus James Cromwell.
Yes.
And if you don't remember The Hunted, it's the episode where this super soldier is kind of matching wits with the Enterprise on a planet or on the ship while they are orbiting a planet that's trying to get into the Federation. It's just extremely well done. I just love the setup. I love the way, poor old Rhaegar Danar. However you say his name, but Danar.
Roga Danar.
Yeah, Roga. That's right. Yeah, Roga Danar. He just keeps everyone guessing, and I just love the performance from Jeff McCarthy, who, by the way, I just found out when I was doing some research. I didn't know that he was the doctor that got killed in Caretaker. I didn't know it was the same actor.
Oh,
right at the EMH replaced. So very interesting. Yes, I thought so. There's a lot of emotion in these scenes between Danar and Troy, and Danar and Data, and I love the way they come to his defense at the end, and just it says a lot. It's also a heavy message episode. It says a lot about military conditioning and PTSD.
Yeah.
And how societies just push all that stuff aside. So yeah, for me I guess it doesn't really sound exactly like comfort food episode, but all the cat and mouse stuff I just love with Danar and the Enterprise crew, and it just keeps me guessing, and I love the ending, the conclusion where Picard's basically saying, we can't interfere in your natural course of your society's development. So, I think, what did you say? It's about to develop significantly, and then he just beams out. Such a great ending. Anyway, I love that episode.
I think he kind of suggested they might reapply to join the Federation later.
Yeah, right.
So, yeah, no, that's a good one. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's definitely different. Not my idea of comfort food, but that's why we're all unique.
Yeah. I love the different takes we're getting on these things. This is fascinating.
Yeah, I knew it was going to be all over the place so far. So, all right, let's hit into round 3. Heather, what do you got?
All right, so where am I at? Well, okay, we have another TNG episode, the penultimate TNG episode, which is the finale. All good things.
Nice.
Yes.
And so I just had to come up with a very terrible 5-word summary, which is just best all-time series finale, because I really think that it is one of the best finales across the board for television.
Yep.
My hashtag is "and the sky's the limit." I don't even know what to say. I think anybody that has seen, how can you not love it? Like how can you not? There's
It's a perfect episode.
what it is for me. It really it really comes together at the end. Like let's just forget the whole episode and talk about the end. Let's talk about when Picard sits down at the poker table. I've been thinking a lot lately about the concept of family and how it's explored over the 7 seasons of TNG, and how Picard himself, goes from, oh, I don't like kids, to tolerating kids. There is such a family element, and when it comes down to it, the crew, and especially our main crew, they are a family, much like we have our little Trek family that goes to the convention. And him finally sitting down with them is just like full circle. I don't know, it's just very, very meaningful for me. And the fact that everything comes together so well at the end, it just, every time I watch that, there's a big happy sigh at the end. So that's why I picked it.
Great pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a huge gift that it's such a great series on such an unbelievably perfect 2-hour episode. It's amazing. I mean, again, deserves a spot on any rewatch list and comfort food list. Perfect.
I really think that it's some of Patrick Stewart's best acting across the entire series. It's phenomenal.
Yep, no doubt.
Definitely.
All right, Jeff, what do you got at number 3?
Oh man, I swear to God, audience, we did not coordinate this, and I've been on the edge of my seat with the last 2 picks. When both of you said TNG, I'm like, oh no. But thank God neither one of your picks were my number 3 pick, which is also a TNG episode. Yeah, this is season 2, episode 9. Maybe, you can argue with me, this may be the best feel-good episode of TNG, Measure of a Man. And my 5-word summary is Data is a real boy. # let my data go. So, I mean, come on. Who can't watch this episode and get so choked up and happy at the end? And you know what? No matter how many times I watch this, I still go through that whole range of emotions. It's so well constructed. It's so well paced. It's so well written and so well acted. I mean, if they'd expanded this to 90 minutes, it would have made a better movie than Insurrection. I mean, True. It's so great. And, the whole courtroom drama, it's so well played. I love, that they have that Picard is so passionate. And I love that they put Riker in this really difficult position of having to, argue for a decision that would essentially kill someone that he cares about. And, there's so many great moments in this episode that show just how great the crew is. And I mean, Heather was just mentioning the development of family throughout TNG. And I think this is one of the episodes that helps to demonstrate just how much the humans can care for an android, and how Data transcends his, machine nature and actually becomes human over the course of the series and the films. I think this is a big step in that. And I don't know how you could watch this episode and not come out of this feeling really good. And I love the resolution at the end where, Riker is so tortured by what he has had to do. And then Data forgives him. They have that moment where, Data says, you know what, I get how you're feeling, but you know what, in a way, you actually saved my life. And that, I think that's a huge moment in their relationship. And every time I watch this, I come away thinking of how great it is and how happy I am for Data and being emancipated.
Pinocchio strings.
Yes. So
come on, Riker. Too far, man. Too far.
Where does Measure of a Man rank on TrekRanks?
Well, so it's an interesting question, and we'll have to debate this another time. It's a great episode. It's one of my all-time favorites, but it's like number 32 or 33
out of 700.
And
that's not that bad.
It just that's just TNG. It dipped a little bit for me, only because again, my number one key is rewatchability. And I'm not gonna lie, I get when Riker says Pinocchio strings have been cut, I'm like, Riker, too far, man. You're doing the job. We get that. You didn't need to embellish that. That was just too far. I'm not saying that's why I don't, but listen, I'm not saying anything bad about that episode. It is an all-time classic Star Trek episode.
Yeah.
One of the best, and deserves its spot on, most top 10 lists when people are doing TNG. And it's definitely an unbelievable rewatch.
Awesome.
Okay, so my number 3 it's a little bit of an outlier. It's our first Voyager episode.
Ooh.
And again, didn't really list. I mean, this is actually one of my favorites. It's a top 20 episode. Definitely not one that I hear mentioned a lot by other people, but I love that it just does an amazing job of combining action and heart with a really huge sci-fi concept, and I can literally watch it over and over again. It is Voyager episode Gravity, which, if you remember, is the one where Tuvok and Tom Paris are sucked into this planet that's operating under a little bit different temporal time vortex, and time's moving fast, and they're kind of stuck there, and they think Voyager's long gone, so they're there for a few months. But Voyager's on the outside, only been outside for a couple of days. So my 5-word summary and hashtag is spectacular scope, heart, and drama. Hashtag tell me about you there, which is what the character Nos, played by Lori Petty, who's on the episode, says to Tuvok as she falls in love with Tuvok. Yeah, it's just a super interesting story for me. It's great to look at. It's really big. There's a lot of amazing backstory for Tuvok, a lot of character depth there. He's one of my favorite overall characters. It's a great performance from him, from Tim Russ, Robert Duncan McNeil, Lori Petty, who I mentioned, and it's just a lot of emotion in this pretty much this 3-person play that they have going on. Oh, and then the bonus, we've heard from the Vulcan Master at the beginning of our episode here. That is Joseph Ruskin, who played Galt from the Gamesters of Triskelion.
Oh, nice.
Doing a little flashback for Tuvok as a young man trying to come to grips with everything. Plus, you got Vasquez Rocks. You got this great location shoot. I just love this episode. I know it's not a popular pick and not one that people talk about a lot as a great episode of Trek, but it's one of my all-time favorites. Awesome. All right, let's move on to round 2.
Okay. So this was tough because it was between this and my number 1. And these are both like some of my all-time, definitely top 10, well, really like top 5 Star Trek episodes. And the one that I would probably have picked for number 1 is number 2. So it is original series, and it is City on the Edge of Forever. And I just wrote down this little lame summary because I had to think of something fast, and it was just Kirk finally falls in love. It's not just another Lady of the Week. And let's see, my hashtag for it was never give up, never surrender.
That's perfect.
And I just... there's a whole discussion that we can have another time, maybe on another podcast, about this episode, because there are thoughts that it is not a Star Trek episode. And I understand why a lot of people think that, and I disagree with it, probably very specifically because of Edith Keeler. Her message and what she hopes for the future is so Star Trek. I have no words, guys. I'm going to share this little quote if I can, not to take up too much time, but it's, when she's doing her little speech and she's saying, one day soon, man is going to be able to harness incredible energies, maybe even the atom, scary. Anyway, energies that could ultimately hurl us into other worlds in some sort of spaceship. And the men that reach out into space will be able to find ways to feed the hungry millions of the world and to cure their disease. They will be able to find a way to give each man hope and a common future. And those are the days worth living for. And that is just so Star Trek.
It's perfect.
I mean, that is Star Trek's message. Her vision of man's future is completely in line with Gene Roddenberry and Star Trek's message. I do love that she's just such an inspiring, strong, amazing female character in Star Trek. I adore her for that, and I respect her so much for that.
Heather, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this is not going to be, it won't be the first, won't be the last time that I'm going to bring this up, but I disagree wholeheartedly with this false narrative that somehow has taken on a life of its own, that somehow this episode is great sci-fi and it's great TV, but it's not great Star Trek episode.
I disagree
I
with that too.
cannot disagree with that anymore.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a huge sci-fi concept. It's
Yeah.
time travel. It's Kirk and Spock hanging out, bantering with each other. It's a huge dilemma solved, with heart, grit, emotion. I'm sorry. This is pure Star Trek. I do not get that narrative, and I never will understand it. So I digress. But I'm glad you brought it up.
I don't either.
because
But what about it doesn't make it Trek? Not to delve into it. I just don't get why anybody
because they're not on the ship. I mean, is that
there's
what
a lot
it
of
is?
episodes that are like that.
Of course, it's
A lot
insane.
of people just say that there's nothing specifically Star Trek in it. Like there are no other aliens, or I'm like, it's got the Guardian.
It's everything. It's
I mean, you can say that about a ton of episodes. Like, what about the Paradise Syndrome?
Yeah.
I mean, Kirk's a Native American for the whole episode.
I mean, there's really. I don't understand that. For me, it's just a complete false narrative that's taken on a life of its own. So
yeah,
very strange.
I don't get it, but this is just it is one of my all-time. I mean, it may be my all-time favorite episode. I feel I have to say, and I'm sorry to take up a lot of time on this, but for Kirk's character, it just does so much for him and gives us such insight into him. Like he can fall in love.
I think Heather might need to listen to episode NX00.
She might have to,
and see what we have to say about that. And you should too, listeners.
Definitely.
I certainly will be doing that.
No spoilers.
But yeah, so that is my number 2.
All right, Jeff, what's your number 2?
All right, guys. So back to the comedy well for me, or it's kind of half comedy. There's some funny stuff in here. And following on the heels of Heather's TOS pick, I've got another TOS pick. Season 2, Episode 12, The Return of Harry Mudd, I-Mudd. 5-word summary, they talk computers to death. #hardcore. Great stuff. I mean, Harry Mudd's revenge plot goes south in the most spectacular way. There's some goofy, lighthearted stuff in here. At no point does it feel overly tense. I absolutely love the fact that they have to act, quote unquote, illogically to screw up the androids. I mean, that was the Achilles heel of these computers, was that they just can't process people acting in a non-predictable way. So, I mean, you get that great pantomime routine where you got Chekhov jumping up and down, people pretending that they're dead and getting back up. It's hysterical. I mean, how could you not laugh? And the closing gag with the potentially 500 copies of Harry Mudd's wife as an android. I mean, what a great way to end that episode. A lot of fun. I never get tired of it, and absolutely just love watching it. So
it
food.
Feels like another defining episode of comfort food. I mean,
absolutely.
I don't think too many people list I-Mudd as one of their favorite episodes.
No,
although I know a couple. I know a few, but it is definitely comfort food if that's what you're looking for. That type of slapsticky kind of humor.
There you go.
Which is great. Heather, any I-Mudd comments? That's a great pick.
Well, I think it is a good reminder of why this character's set to appear in Discovery.
Mm-hmm.
I'm interested to see what they do with him, but a lot of people don't. They seem to remember the terrible aspects of Mudd over the comedic aspects of Mudd, and he's definitely, the comedy is not for everyone, but I think that is the driving force behind the character and a lot of his value to the series. And so I get why Jeff would pick it, and
I gotta say, this is the only Harry Mudd episode out of the trilogy of Harry Mudd episodes where I think the Mudd character really works well. I think this is the best representation of him. I'm not a huge Mudd's Women fan, and definitely not a huge Mudd's Passion fan, but this is the one Harry Mudd episode where I think he just fires off on all the right notes. You've got that kind of goofy scoundrel thing going on. And he just keeps getting in his own way, and he thinks he's in charge, but he's really not. And he keeps fooling himself into thinking that he is, and it's a lot of fun. But as a character overall, I'm not a huge Mud fan. I just think in this episode, he's great.
But I am excited to see what's going to happen when we see some more Harry Mudd in Discovery.
Definitely.
That is cool. All right, I'm going to finish off round 2. I got another deep cut episode here that might not jump out at people in terms of recognizability. And I'm not sure why this episode isn't a little bit more revered in Trek history, because for some reason it's just not, mentioned very often. But it's number 22 on my DS9 TrekRanks.com listing, and it is Starship Down. And my 5-word summary and hashtag is Defiant Crew Works Through Attack, hashtag plus James Cromwell. And yes, amazingly, James Cromwell is in 2 of my top 5 comfort food episodes, is kind of a weird anomaly. But this is the episode again where the Defiant's in the Gamma Quadrant and they get jumped by a couple of Jem'Hadar, and so it's a little bit of a like disaster in TNG where the ship gets rocked and there's 2 or 3 or 4 different storylines going on as they try to solve the issue and get out of the mess. And I just love the pacing in this episode. I think it's just incredible. It's nice and slow and it's moody and there's some tension. It's just an easy flow from one scene to the next, and overall it's just a really powerful episode for me with a lot of weight and a lot of emotion. I think the Armin Shimmerman and James Cromwell scenes where they're debating this little bit back and forth where Shimmerman just nails Quark in these scenes. He's basically saying that he's basically showing you, hey, I'm devious, I'm single-minded, but I'm respectful of the process of getting cheated, So, and he's explaining to the guy, hey, this is how I cheated you. And I know you're good enough to understand, how impressive this is. So everything with them is just awesome. And then there's the Worf stuff where he's commanding these non-coms. There's a lot of good payoff there. The special effects are top notch. Just a fun episode for me to rewatch. God, Bashir and Dax are in it. Oh, and then the ending too, where you've got this whole Sisko Kira dynamic where he's hurt and she's trying to talk to him about being more than just work acquaintances and trying to be friends, and she doesn't feel like she's connecting him. And the end of the episode is one of my favorites, actually, when Sisko says, would you like to go to a baseball game? Yeah. He puts on the cap and she's just grinning from ear to ear. And it just warms, melts my heart. I love that.
It's incredible. Such a great ending. I mean, again, it's just one of those feel good, just you love it. Like there's just so much going on in the episode, but then it ties it, like it puts this nice little bow on it at the end.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I've found that these ones with a lot of different layers are the ones I rewatch over and over and just kind of get attached to. So, all right, we are through 4 rounds.
Oh man,
we are down to the number ones.
Butterflies.
Okay,
gonna keep going. So Heather, what is your number 1?
Okay, this was tough. I said it was easy, but really it got tough. It got tough here. I'm really impressed, Jim, with all of your picks because they are deep cuts and I kind of just picked like my super favorite episodes, but that's, we're all different. Different things to get to us differently. Okay, so it is another TOS episode. It is just my favorite thing in the world. It's the Corbomite maneuver.
Nice.
Love it.
Nice.
Love that.
So the 5-word summary I just very quickly came up with is terrible, but it is creepy baby alcoholic Clint Howard.
Perfect.
Which is not quite a summary, but that's what I think of. And then my hashtag, which is also 5 words, was there's Tradia in that nebula. This episode just has so much in it. It's got that like crazy leg press thing in sickbay. Yep. like that thing is iconic. Like you're like, what is that even that he's doing his exercises on? Not to mention that Kirk is shirtless, so we can all appreciate that. At least I can. We've got Uhura in her gold dress this time. We've got the Microsoft Cube ship thing, which I love. and baby Clint Howard. It's just such a fun episode. I loved it the first time that I saw it. I'll turn it on anytime. It's really a go-to, just lighthearted. It has a great message. It's got her saying her catchphrase for the first time. Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Nice.
First time to hear that. And it's also got like one of the best quotes in Star Trek from Kirk that really just sums up who he is as a captain when he says, "I've already got a female to worry about. Her name's the Enterprise." For all these reasons, plus that creepy, wacky maquette dummy thing, which is just like, I just saw that. And I'm just like, really? Like, this is so awful, but it's so good. I love it. And then we get, baby Clint Howard at the end. It's just the best thing. Like that, it makes me happy. So that's why I chose it.
It was definitely on my short list. It was tough for me to keep off my list, but I'm so glad you picked it. It's perfect Trek.
Yeah. Brilliant.
And perfect comfort food.
Yeah.
And Kirk and Ron, and Clint Howard, the fact that the guy is still acting and appeared in DS9. I just love everything about that.
And I think he's going to be at the convention this year too.
I think so. Yeah.
Again, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So just so.
All right. Jeff, what's your number one?
Oh God. Are you sure you guys don't have anything more to say about Corbomite Maneuver? Buy me some time.
Go for it.
I want to hear this.
I'm nervous, man. I am really nervous. Flagrant and unapologetic use of no wrong answers here.
Yes.
And Jim, I'm going to tell you, 200 plus episodes of the Tricorder Transmissions, almost 4 years I've been waiting to drop this. And this is the perfect opportunity to drop this. My number one comfort food is not an episode, it's a film.
Yes, I may interrupt you. I was going to say this before. Films are in play for all of TrekRanks. So we say episodes, but we really mean episodes and films. So hit it. I love this.
Man. Well, if any pick on this episode is going to draw listener feedback, it's going to be this one.
But I'm about to cut your mic, by the way. I'm about to cut your mic because I know where you're going.
You know where I'm going, don't you? And you do too,
Yes,
Heather.
I do.
My pick for number one is Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. I knew you were going to groan.
This is the end of TrekRanks Podcast, everybody. Sorry.
And I will tell you why. And I will tell you why. People have been asking me to talk about this for 200 episodes. So I'm going to finally do it. My 5 words are Fate God kills Spock's brother. And my hashtag sums up my feelings on this movie perfectly. TOS Trinity. This is, in my mind and in my heart, the only TOS film that feels like a TOS episode, and it focuses on the relationship between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. So from beginning to end, it is however you feel about the movie, however you feel about the mistakes and the missteps and the issues that the movie apparently and obviously has. There's nothing more special to me than seeing 3 of my favorite characters of all time go on a 90-minute adventure from start to finish together, not separated, not on separate ships, not on separate planets, but they're in a situation together the entire time. I absolutely love it. The camaraderie between the 3 of them is strong. You actually get some character backstory moments for the 3 of them in this movie. Say what you want about Cybok and adding Spock's brother in. I get it. I get all the complaints. I totally understand where everybody comes from this movie. But for me, as a TOS fan, seeing those 3 characters together and some of the great moments for the other characters too. There's some really funny stuff in there. Some nice heartwarming moments for some of the other characters too. So this to me is a comfort food extravaganza, and I watch it a lot. So feel free to roast me for it, guys. I totally get your perspectives on it. But again, Kirk, Spock, McCoy together for 90 minutes, having an adventure, to me is perfect.
No wrong answers. There are no wrong answers. Actually, again, Jeff, impassioned defense, you make such great arguments. I'm sitting there going, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch this again.
You know what?
Listen,
and I get
on TrekRanks, on TrekRanks, it is dead last.
I get it.
I've labeled it many times on my Twitter and people who follow me know I believe it's the worst 2 hours ever of Star Trek.
I totally get it. I'm not going to argue against that. This is not my list of favorites.
But I can see how it could be comfort food. I can totally see it. And that's the whole point of this episode.
If this was my top 5 Star Trek episodes or films of all time, it wouldn't make the list.
Yeah.
But for me, this is comfort food. Pure nostalgia. I love those characters and I love seeing them all together.
That's brilliant.
And enough said.
That's great. All right. Well, then we're gonna end it on a. I mean, that was the pinnacle. So this is gonna be a letdown for sure. So my number 1 episode is a little different. It's I kind of even confused myself. I was kind of wondering, like, what is it about this episode that makes it such a comfort for me? And literally this one was, when I started going through this, the first one that popped into my head. It was immediately the one I thought was going to be number 1, and it ended up, as I went through everything, was my number 1. It's always one of my go-tos. I rewatch it all the time, and it's a season 2 Next Gen episode. And you'd think that there'd be a lot better choices out there, but I think it was the end of season 2. It's Peak Performance, which is number 30 at my TNG Trek Ranks. My 5-word summary is: Kohlrami is amazing, sells everything, # busted him up. And I think, this is basically just a bottle show, and it's not exactly the most original framework for a story. There's, it's war games. We've seen that crutch before, and the Ferengi are never the greatest foil, but it's all about this Zach Dorn strategist, Sirna Kohlrami. I just think he's one of the best guest characters ever on Trek. The actor's Roy Brocksmith, who died a few years ago, and he's just so impressive in this role. I just love watching him. I love watching him, his smugness, his little attitude, the way he just kind of scurries around the bridge, and he's super confident. And it all comes across in this really just likable way. So I don't know why I love this episode so much, but I can rewatch it all the time and just cheer for Kohlrami. And by the way, I noticed this too. This episode features the character actor Glenn Morshower, I think is how you pronounce it. He was a very famous character actor. He's the sheriff in North Star. So Glenn Morshower's in 2 of my comfort episodes. So I must be a huge Glenn Morshower and Jake from fan. But anyway, I love this episode. Any quick take from you guys on this episode?
Yeah, it's not a standout episode for me, but I love that it is for you.
I think I've lost all credibility with my pick, so I'm not sure I should weigh in on this.
Your pick is genius. I brought the show to a screeching halt with my number 1. Jesus.
Oh, man.
All right, let's do a couple of quick secondary systems activation here with some honorable mentions. I'll start one because I don't have any TOS on my list, which surprises me. But my number 1, my TOS would have been the Cloudminders.
Good
I don't know
pick.
why. I just find this a very satisfying episode. I love the final act where Kirk's gets that high advisor dude down there, and they're just fighting it out in the cave, and he's proving everybody wrong. Plus, you got Droxine, and there's a guy's throwing himself off the balcony. It's just a fun episode for me to rewatch, and it's one of my go-tos on a TOS rewatch. Any for you guys?
I've got 2 because so the first one I never even thought about the movies, so I have to give a shout out to The Voyage Home because it's just my favorite Star Trek movie ever, and it is certainly a comfort food film. So that one. But then also, I know we're not including the animated series on here, but I have to give a little shout out to the Lorelei Signal, but which hopefully you've rewatched at this point. I don't know, but it's so awesome because it's just girl power.
Mm-hmm.
Her kind of gets, the guys get a little brainwashed sort of by the women on this planet. And so the women of Enterprise have to take over the ship basically. And it's got just so many great great things. And it's such a strong female girl power episode, despite some shortcomings. But it's just awesome. And so those two, Voyage Home and then Lorelei Signal, would definitely qualify as runners up for the comfort food.
Those are great. The girl power. It totally makes sense. Lorelei Signal. That's a fun one. I'm not a big animated guy, but I get that pick. Jeff, what else you got? Any other secondary system selections here?
I have to co-sign with Heather on the Voyage Home. Got to give a nod to the Voyage Home. That I don't know how you can't think of that as comfort food.
Agreed.
Fish out of water. Pun intended and not intended. Story. So great stuff. Possibly, I'm threw around quite a few, but Trouble with Tribbles almost made it too.
Yeah.
That almost made it. But then again, they had the conflict between that and the DS9 version. So I figured if I wasn't going to include one, I wasn't going to include the other. So
I'm glad Tribbles made the list in some form, because Trouble with Tribbles is definitely a comfort.
I'm like anybody that I've got the word tattooed on my arm, guys. So
you had to.
So of course there's going to be a Tribble one somewhere, but I would say of all the Tribbles, Trials and Tribulations is definitely my favorite.
That's great. I got one more honorable mention on my list was from Enterprise, and I know it's not an episode for everyone. I adore this two-parter. Anytime you can see space Nazis get punched in the nose, it's Stormfront from the end of season 3 and the opener of season 4.
Yeah.
Or actually, it was two-parter at the beginning of season 4. But for me, it's just a great way to end the Xindi arc. And I just, when they showed those space Nazis at the end of Countdown or 0 Hour, whatever the last episode of season 3 was, just awesome. I love that cliffhanger. So super fun episode.
Here.
To World War II. All right. I think that was ridiculously fun is what that was.
I'm sad it's over.
All right. Well, time for a recap now as we enter our much needed regeneration cycle.
Computer, activate regeneration cycle. Alcoves beta and gamma.
All right. We're going to run through just a quick recap of our choices. So actually, I took some stats here. This is actually kind of interesting. There were no ties. TOS had 5 choices.
Nice.
TNG had 4 choices. Enterprise, a little bit of a surprise, had 3 choices. DS9 had 2 choices, and Voyager pulled up the rear with 1.
Sorry, Voyager.
No, that's okay. Listen, there's no wrong answers. Doesn't mean Voyager's not awesome. Voyager is awesome.
I can pick out one of my all-time favorite Star Trek moments from Voyager.
What was it?
It's when the Doctor and 709 are singing together.
Yeah.
I don't remember what episode it's in, but there's
Someone to Watch Over Me, but there's a few others to it.
Yeah.
All right, so Heather, just run down your 5 choices really quick. So we have
So 5 was Star Trek Enterprise Awakening.
Best choice of the night. Yep.
Okay, what did I pick for 4? Shoot, mine are all out of order now.
You had Tribbles. You had Trials and Tribulations.
Okay.
Yep.
So then 3 was All Good Things from Next Generation. 2 was City on the Edge of Forever from original series, followed by the Corbomite Maneuver, also original series.
Awesome. Jeff, let's run down your 5 again too. You started with a doozy, and you ended with a doozy.
I certainly did. I bookended mine with a couple of big slaps in the face. So, number 5, TOS season 3, episode 20, The Way to Eden. Number 4, Enterprise season 2, episode 23, Regeneration. Number 3, TNG season 2, episode 9, Measure of a Man. TOS season 2, episode 12, I Mud. And my number 1 comfort food pick.
We're moving on. Yet
again, Sorry. Star Trek V: The Final Frontier. The only film of the night, by the way.
Incredible list. I'm gonna do a marathon of those 5 choices at some point here soon. That was spectacular. All right, my number 5 was North Star from Enterprise. Number 4 was The Hunted from TNG with Roga Danar. Number 3, Gravity from Voyager. Number 2 from DS9, Starship Down. And number 1, the great Zach Dorn strategist, Sirna Korami and peak performance from TNG. So yeah, that's I knew we weren't going to have any crossover. We were close on a couple of spots, but that's 15 solid episodes.
Love it.
Of Trek to get down and comfortable with some comfort food. All right, so let's talk about the next episode of TrekRanks, which will technically be episode 2, and it's going to be another fun one. Jeff, I haven't told you this yet, but it's going to be another little bit more of a deep cut selection. We're going to be breaking down our top 5 episodes or films featuring the Prime Directive.
Oh.
So everyone should study up on their Prime directives, and I'm confident that I'm pretty sure Jeff's gonna choose Justice from TNG. So based on his list tonight, I don't think there's any doubt. So, all right, now important reminder on how you can join us on the TrekRanks podcast via a temporal causality loop.
The Enterprise has been caught up in a temporal causality loop. And I suspect that something similar may have happened to you.
That's right, John Luke. We have entered a temporal causality loop, and the only way for us to break the cycle is to have our listeners let us know what they think of our selections and what their selections are. That's more important. We want to hear what your choices are. So, what are your top 5 comfort food episodes and why? That's what we want to hear. We'll choose from the best responses and have you join us here on the next episode via the temporal causality loop. So keep it short, keep it tight, keep it concise, and you can record your message by calling the Tricorder transmissions at 609-512-5527. That's 609-512-LLAP. So we're definitely looking forward to hearing from you. It's something we're counting on so we can keep talking about Star Trek here in our temporal loop. All right, Jeff, Heather, thank you so much. We have successfully navigated episode 01 of the TrekRanks podcast, the very first official episode of TrekRanks, and I couldn't be happier. So thanks for getting us launched. Really,
thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Thanks, guys. All right, and thank you for engaging with us. I'm looking forward to standing here with you again, here in this place where I belong.
Hi there, thanks again for listening. If you're cruising the galaxy looking for even more Trek talk, why not visit our good friends Bill and Dan over at TrekGeeks.com? They've got a great podcast that covers a wide range of Star Trek topics, so you're sure to find something you'll love. And if you're in the mood for some awesome tunes, then you really need to head over to 5yearmission.net. The guys are writing a song for every episode of the original series, and each one is absolutely brilliant. So that's TrekGeeks.com and 5yearmission.net. Check them out today.